Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
We are with Mrinal Sen to talk about his life, his art and his various interests over those long years. This will be an absolutely informal chat because Mrinal Sen cannot be contained by any formality. So we will talk, act and react as he feels like it. And to start the ball rolling, Mrinalda, I know you hate nostalgia, but for the sake of history, let us start from the very beginning. Your date of birth and your place of birth.
Well, I was born long years ago. I am now 75. But whoever sends me congratulatory telegrams or faxes, either from this country or from abroad, I always tell them, thank you for remembering my birth date, but please, for God's sake, forget the year of my birth. Because that way I feel I am old. Now, what you said about what are you going to do with me, it seems it will be a marathon session with me. And get ready for contradictions because I am very good at that. I am a bundle of contradictions myself. And I do walk very fast, faster than what my age can contain. But I speak not very fast. So I would also ask you not to ask me questions very fast. And I will ask you not to go in for any surprise attacks. I will try to answer your questions as faithfully as I can. Anyway, I was born in 1923. I still remember the day. It was 14th of May. And I was born in a small town, now in Bangladesh, Faridpur. And even though it is a small town, it is called a district town, but then it had the flavor of the rural flavor, what I am talking about. So I grew there for some time, for a few years.
Any childhood memory?
Well, I don't think I had any very exciting childhood, nor would I say that I have any retarded childhood either. But then I remember a few things which happened to me. One of the things which might be very exciting to the viewers was that my first dentist was, in a way, Subhash Chandra Bose.
What was the connection?
That is very interesting because that is a town which was politically very hot. I mean, politically, in Congress there were two divisions, the moderates and the extremists. And Faridpur was famous for the people, activists, who were very extremists. And there quite often, and whether extremists or moderates, it had a political atmosphere, and my father was a lawyer there, and he took active role in politics, mostly in extremist politics. He was close to Lal Bal Pal triumvirate, Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and Bipin Chandra Pal, three of them. So there used to be a number of the provincial conferences in Faridpur. There was a time I was very young. I heard everything from my mother. The Bengal Provincial Congress conference was taking place in Faridpur. And Calcutta to Faridpur, it was a 6-hour journey by train, overnight journey. And that was the place where ice was not available. It was summertime when the conference took place for 3-4 days. And conference has to have preparations for quite some time. And Subhash Chandra Bose used to come and go. He used to come, stay for a day, and then next day he would go back to Calcutta doing something else, and then again come back. He was very restless, as much as a man of his eminence could be. And then my mother told me that one day I was crying because I had something wrong in my teeth, and I was crying of pain, toothache. And Subhash Chandra Bose was there in Calcutta, in Faridpur, at our place. And he asked my mother, what has happened? He said, it is this. The caries have formed or something like this. That was the belief at that time. It was like that. He said, well, ask him to suffer for another day. Tonight I am going to Calcutta, and day after tomorrow I will be back. And I will come with medicine. And after 2 days he came with medicine, he didn't forget, and gave it to my mother and said, apply it very carefully or very gently and see that it doesn't touch the skin. In that case, the skin will burn. And it acted like a miracle. And the moment one drop was there inside, it was all gone. The pain was all gone. But I was a bit restless when the medicine was applied, and it touched a bit of skin which was burnt at that time. It doesn't show anymore, but then that is how I say that he was my first dentist. Later on, that tooth was extracted by a local doctor, and incidentally and very interestingly, that medicine was German medicine. So I could see later on the German connection between Subhash Chandra Bose and Germany. That started long back. Ours was a very large family, father having so many children, and I'm one of them. And not the youngest. After me, there are two more, yes, after me. So I was considered by my parents to be a good one, even though my school performance was not extraordinary, but not bad either. This is all about my childhood, but I can remember something. We may come back to it later on. The dreams and other things which everybody in his childhood does indulge in, or it comes to them. But when I passed the matriculation examination, I was there in Faridpur to do my ISc, Intermediate Science, and then I came to Calcutta. I was in mid-16 when 16 or 17, something like this, and I was to come to Calcutta to go in for higher studies. So before I came, the day before, I was feeling very bad that I am going to a place which I don't know. And I will be all alone, I will be living in a hostel. Never did I do that. I was always not under the protection of my parents, but I was always in my own house. So with all the warmth, with all the greatness and the meannesses that I can remember, that was it. A very large family being so, you see all kinds of things happening in the family. And a middle-class family. Mine was not a very rich family. It was not a poor family either. Anyway, but the day before I was to leave, I asked my mother, just to embarrass her, I asked her if she could find a bit of streak of genius in me when I was a child. My father also overheard the same thing. If there was any streak of genius in me. And they fumbled. They couldn't tell the truth, but at the same time, since I'm going there, I'm going to...
They did not like to hurt your feeling.
They didn't want to hurt my feeling, but at the same time, they wanted to be assured that I will be doing very well when I come to Calcutta. When I could find them, they felt terribly embarrassed, which was my intention. I wanted to embarrass my parents. And then I said they didn't have to stay long as in an embarrassed situation. So I told them, don't you worry, a very eminent man in the 20th century once said that all are genius up to the age of 10. So my parents immediately gave me the benefit of doubt. And with this benefit of doubt, I came to Calcutta.
Before we come to the Calcutta part, there is one little question which I would like to ask. As you just told us, your family was definitely pro-Congress in their political belief.
Very much so.
But your political philosophy has always been left-oriented.
Yes, it is very clear.
Did it happen in Faridpur itself, or was it the impact of Calcutta?
Impact of Faridpur was also there, because as I told you, my father belonged to the extremist group. And you find a lot of Communist Party leaders coming from that extremist groups of the Congress. So that may be one reason. You never know if my father were young at that time and could be of reasonable age when I came to Calcutta. He could have been given some more time for him before he dies. He could have been a Marxist as well. Even when my father, I saw that one, a small booklet. I told you about this Riot Conference in 1923, which was presided over by C.R. Das, Chittaranjan Das. There my father was the chairman of the reception committee. He had to make a speech, and that was in a small booklet, it is found. And it was the only one copy he kept preserved very, very, carefully in his drawer. One day I saw it, I read it, and there was a mention of Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, which changed the entire face of Russia, Tsarist Russia. So that was there. So these are the things which you can't sort of avoid. Even a staunch Gandhiite like Munshi Premchand, in his speeches also it was like that. And in his writings also, he at times gave the impression to me, because I'm very fond of Premchand. And he, in one of his novels, said that when you are hit, you have to hit back. Not to be angry when you are humiliated is not saintliness, it is cowardice. These are the things he said, and that is not Gandhian at all. So when you are very close to the reality, doesn't mean that Gandhiji was not. But you see, normally the normal impression, the normal reaction, the response is like that. As Premchand said it in very clear terms. For instance, I made a film based on his, to my mind, the best story ever written, that is his last story, Kafan. I made a film based on Kafan. It was made in Telugu, it was made in Telangana. And I didn't know a word of Telugu, but I made it. And I remember when I read it a number of times. And I will come to it later on, how do I look at a text? What is my function as a filmmaker? I will come to that later on. But I remember one thing, I remember Premchand's son, Amrit Rai, who wrote a book on Premchand, the Kalam Ka Sipahi. Pardon my Hindi pronunciation, it might be very wrong. There are people around who will be laughing. Well, Amrit Rai, he saw the film. I was there to give the translation. I was sitting there with a microphone, giving the translation in Bengali, in English, because there were many other people there. So it gave the impression to people that I know Telugu very well, but I don't know Telugu at all. And then Amrit Rai, Premchand's son, came out and embraced me. Mrinal, it is a shattering film. It is a shattering experience. But I am sorry to tell you that I have not agreed with your interpretation. Then I told him, I knew that. I told him, had your father been alive, I am afraid your father would not have agreed to my interpretation either. But do you have any regrets that you allowed me to make a film with my own interpretation which doesn't agree with you or would not have agreed with your father's? And he said, not at all, you are free to do it the way you feel you should. This is what I did, and I will tell you why I did so later on. But then that is what it is. So you can have as many stories by Premchand as you like. I told, that is why I tell you I like the film very much, but I don't agree with your interpretation. That is why I say that my father was a congressman, and he was very close to Congress. He had many friends in Congress. For instance, when Gandhiji was arrested after one of the roundtable conferences in London, and when he came back, the moment he came back, Gandhiji was arrested. And all over the country, there was strike. And there was complete hartal all over the country. And the life was completely paralyzed all over the country. And my father and his colleagues, the lawyers, didn't go to court that day. And then the next day, the district magistrate, he took his pick. He just picked up my father and asked him to come to his office. And my father had to go there and asked my father, why didn't you come there? The other people were also asked that they had to tell some stories, some justification why they didn't come. But my father said, I didn't come because Gandhiji was arrested. As an act of protest, I didn't go there. And immediately my father was disbarred. Disbarment, I don't know if in India disbarment took place ever. But my father was disbarred. He was not allowed to practice in the court of law for 6 months. And then, so nothing could be done about it. So my father, he went to the court and he lost his case. Then he made an appeal to High Court. And Sharath Chandra Bose, Subhash Bose's elder brother, he said, "Don't you fear, I am here. I will be taking up your case." And after 3 months, Calcutta High Court gave him the relief and he started practicing again from after 3 months. So that was it. But even then, I say, how is it that I had left leanings? It was very much there in Faridpur, in the atmosphere in which I grew. I had no other choice.
So many years after that, in 1974, you made a film called Padatik.
Yes.
And there was also the conflict of a father and a son.
Yes.
The father who was an old-timer,
Yes.
and the son a rebel, an extremist, somebody who believed in extremist philosophy, and their encounter. Was it autobiographical?
Well, I don't know if it is autobiographical, but it is not without my own experience. I had my childhood experience, that was there. And though the father and the son, they were at a kind of unwritten war between the son and the father. That is a very, very global phenomenon. Everywhere you find that, between that unwritten, unannounced war between the father and the son. That is always there. And that is there, and in my case, it was truer than cases of others. But in addition to that, I had some more things, which happened in 1950, 51, 52, 53, when India became independent, and the Communist Party quite often had to go underground. So I could see a lot of things. When the fighting the establishment, the anti-establishment front, had to go at times the establishmentarian way. I have seen where the fight between the leader and the cadre took place. These are also there in that film. In Padatik, you mentioned in 74. Yes. A lot of experiences come together. So you can say I have sort of personalized the whole thing. I collected all these experiences of mine, or in other words, not that I had to make efforts to collect. These come automatically to me because, the memories are never annihilated. It is just from one shape to another. It is always there. It is always there, like what happened in Pompeii. You find everything there under the debris. And when Pompeii was unearthed, they found the same thing like that in Italy when the Vesuvius erupted. So in the same manner, whenever I get some kind of provocation from somewhere, from outside, these are the things which come up. And taken together, I don't know how the chemistry operates, but it does. A lot of things come up.
Now, in that film, in the last sequence, the father and son, in spite of their differences, reached a point of understanding where they could understand each other and also sympathize and give moral support to each other. In real life, did you come that close to your father?
Yes. My father would suddenly ask me to go and burn the trams and buses, which was almost a household reality in Faridpur and in Calcutta. I remember once in 1951, I was arrested. I was arrested before that also in 41 when I was a student. I was arrested. I stayed there in the police station, police custody for 7 days. And every day I used to be interrogated by the special branch for 7 days.
But
and
you
then
were also arrested when you were a child in the school.
Yes, when I was in class 3.
Yeah.
I don't remember how old I was. So I was in a political manifestation in Faridpur. And I said, Vande Mataram, police has gone hot-headed. Vande Mataram, police is Matagaram. I said it. And it was because you were not allowed to say Vande Mataram at that time there. Some people said, some people didn't allow. Some people allowed, some didn't. So then the policemen came, these people came, and some of them, my elder brothers, ran away. But then I was there standing. like Casabianca. So I was arrested. I was there for 3 hours and I cried. I cried a lot when I found canes and canes on the table. A policeman brought canes on the table and brought also big ropes. And the police officer told me, I will hang you there and then I will start beating you with the canes. And I started crying. And then my people came from my house, they came to know about it, and after 3 hours I could go. And there was no case instituted against me. But then in 1941, I was arrested. And that was the time when, in 41, that was during British rule. I was arrested from my hostel. And that was the time when the Communist Party went underground. And I was arrested on charge of being the connecting link between the overground and underground. And I was having some connection with, that is what they came to know. This is false. I was having connection with Gita Mukherjee MP's uncle. Yes. He was a great student leader at that time. And the police got the information that I had the connection with him, who was in hiding at that time. And then I was released on bail after 7 days. And then when the case was there on, so one of my father's friends, he defended me. And then when I came out, I could see my father standing there. And mind you, I was considered a communist at that time. And I was doing the job for a communist underground leader. Okay? But my father came all the way from Faridpur, came to Calcutta, and as I came out, my father clasped my hand. Keep it up, he said. Keep it up, he said. And that is exactly what.
That's the last dialogue of
the last
Bharati
dialogue
also.
Is there.
And what was that 1951 arrest for?
1951, there is nothing much. That was the time when all of us have been trying to enter cinema, a sort of gate crashing. I was there, Ritik Ghatak, Salil Chaudhary. None of us was doing anything substantial. Myself, Ritik Ghatak, Salil Chaudhary, Kali Banerjee, an actor in Bengal, and Taposh Sen, the Wizard of Light. Right. All of us were trying to do something which could be great. And all of us wanted to do great crashing and become filmmakers. Because by that time we came to know quite a lot about what is happening outside. And the post-war Italian cinema, post-war French cinema, and a lot of other things. We came to know about it. And we could see films as well. And that was the time when most of our time we used to be in a small tea shop called Paradise. A very small tea shop, and the shop owner was very indulgent with all of us. And we didn't have money enough to buy tea. So we purchased 1 cup of tea, and all that we did, and it was a very big cup, magnum-sized cup he gave us, and so that we could divide between 4 people. So that was it. And we used to sit there for a long time. He didn't mind at all. And that was it. He gave us a lot of indulgences. And that was the time when, after a long session of what we call in Bengali adda, gossiping, talking.
Adda is untranslatable.
It is untranslatable.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean any
convincing
adda. Adda means talking, it's jolush. What is that? Adda is adda, which is very, very peculiar to Bengal. So we keep on giving addas for 6 hours, 7 hours, doing nothing for the families. They could expect something from us, but none of us could do anything. None of us could be helpful to parents, could be helpful to household economy. None of us. But then one day I was coming back. As I was coming back, wearing a pajama and a kurta and a tattered chappal, so we had to walk distances. Wherever we stayed, we used to come and collect there in that Paradise restaurant. So I was walking along the street. Suddenly there was some pandemonium I could see. Everything, the people were running helter-skelter. The police came there. And before I could realize what is the situation, I was caught by a policeman. And I discovered myself sitting inside the prison van. And later on I came to know that just a couple of minutes before I went there was someone threw a bomb at the tram depot. And I was also taken to be one of these people who took part in this action. So then again it was for 2-3 days I was there. And it was when I looked around, instead of feeling very great, I felt very humiliated because my hand was tied along with somebody else's. He could be a thief or somebody, I don't know.
So now we come back to your Calcutta days. You entered Calcutta via Shialdah station when you were 16 and a half,
Yes.
thinking of a new world.
Well, my Calcutta, coming from a small-time city, very small town with hub town, hub village. From there I came to the city for the first time. Such a big city. I felt totally lost. And I can tell you, I have something about my first experiences. As soon as I came to the big city, I was seized with a kind of fear. I confronted a crowd, a huge crowd. I felt lost. I had no reason to feel lost in this small town because everybody knows everybody. Everybody is worried about everybody. That was Faridpur. But the city is very different. I felt lost. I felt I was standing alone in the crowd, an anonymous, self-absorbed in different swarms of crowd, even menacing and monstrous, loved by my parents and liked by my small-town teachers. I now was reduced to anonymity, suffering acutely from a depressing sense of emptiness. Till things proved different, I remained an outsider in Calcutta. Things proved different in many ways, and that was a great beginning of my life.
Mrinal, you are one filmmaker who has filmed Calcutta in so many ways. I think nobody else has looked at Calcutta like you. What was this special bond between you and the city? What made Calcutta so attractive to you?
I don't know about others, but I can tell about myself that gradually I started loving Calcutta. And there came a time when I just couldn't escape loving Calcutta. And that reminds me of, again, something, my Calcutta, my El Dorado. Why do I say it? And when I say my Calcutta is my El Dorado, it is not that there is a bit of pinch in it. I call it Calcutta my El Dorado. I call it with a little bit of banter also. This is what I wrote once. Calcutta, I am both touched and shaken by its vibrancy and youthfulness, its flippancy, and indeed its tragic dimension. For me, it acts like a stimulant and a provocation. I, a self-styled innocent, and like Innocent Abroad by Mark Twain. Have you read it? Yes, you must have read it. I, a self-styled innocent, I borrowed the word innocent from his Innocent Abroad, Mark Twain's. I, a self-styled innocent and incorrigible Calcuttan, am not ashamed to call it my El Dorado. Calcutta, like many other places in the world, is a city of glaring contrasts. When I'm talking so highly of Calcutta, I want to assure you that I am the least parochial of all the parochials in Calcutta. Dipankar, this is what I have to tell you. The parochials are all around,
Yes.
all over the country, not to speak of the world alone. This country, the full of the parochials are there. From parochials, they become fanatics, they become fundamentalists. There are a lot of ethnic problems, all because of this. The Calcutta, like many other places in the world, is a city of glaring contrasts, a curious blend of the old and the new, partly feudal, partly born out of growing urbanization, partly undefinable. This, like any other city, is one stifled with people, the ugly and the beautiful, the resolute and the hesitant, the strong and the weak, the sober and the funny. Unlike many other cities, Calcutta is one with all that belongs essentially to it. Vast and complex, fantastically active and incredibly lazy, violently political and hopelessly disengaged, serious and comical. Now what happened, it was in 1968 or 69, yes, later part of 1968. Meantime, I have been making films. And that was the time when I was whenever I found some political manifestations, some confrontation between the police and the students, some confrontation between the police and the women, some confrontation between the police and the workers and the farmers, laborers as coming from the villages, the farmers. That was the time when I used to have a camera from 35mm camera. And since I didn't have any money, I collected some money, I begged, borrowed money and got some films, cut pieces. It was not important to have the quality of the photography. I wanted to do a coverage of all this, whatever had been happening. That was the time when I started doing such things. And with a cameraman, I didn't have to pay him anything. So we did out of love, without knowing how I am going to use these shots, the confrontation and all that. Because this is never done in Indian cinema, but I wanted to do it because one of these days I will be in a position to make a film where I can put all these things into the film, which I did later on.